Okay, this video is for Lab 2. I just wanted to make it clear at the beginning that the data that you'll be working with is not the data that I have here on the screen. Each year students collect their own data, and this is data from last year. Yours will definitely look different. I'm going to use this data set, however, just to walk you through the process. All right, so I've already changed all these column headings as per step 1 in the instructions. Let's go on to step 2, where we're going to do a little bit of data cleaning. So we're going to look through here and we see that, let's see, years in prison. And by the way, people have actually entered this. This is not something I made up. Someone actually entered a little story here about what should happen in lieu of a prison sentence. So not much we can do with that one. We're going to get rid of it. We'll just have to get rid of this whole cell, because obviously Excel can't do arithmetic on a text field. That's a little story like that. All right, let's look over here now in the age area. By the way, these closed-ended questions, there's never going to be an issue because Google Forms is entering the number for the survey respondents, so there's no chance that they enter something crazy. All right, let's take a look now at the age field. Believe it or not, Excel knows what to do with 22 and a half. I didn't think that it did, but actually it does. So we can leave that, even though it's annoying. Believe it or not, this is a real entry that somebody offered. Here, though, we can edit it. Unlike the first case, we know this person is 21. We don't need the yippee, but we know the person's 21. So we'll just recode that to 21, and we're good to go. All right, let's move on now to step 3. In step 3, we're going to create variable names from these column headings. So to do that, we did something like this in the first lab. It's a little bit different here. I'm going to select all of the data, including these column names, and I'm going to go up to Formulas, Create from Selection over here. I'm going to click that, and we don't need the right column. We just need the top row. We add the right column. In fact, it's not going to work. Click OK, and that's done. By the way, you can check to see that this was done correctly by going up to the Name Manager. And you see here all of the variables that we've created. There's age, there's cold, warm, there's crime, etc. If you ever get an error in Excel where you get a pound sign and the word name, there's a good chance that your formula referenced a variable that you created and that you simply mistyped it. So if you get that error, that's the reason for it. Okay, I'm going to click Close, and now I'll go on to step 4. Step 4, we're going to create mean, median prison sentences. So just for purposes of label, I'm going to put mean there. I'll put median over there. And now we're going to do the computation. So the mean uses the average function. The average function takes as arguments all of these cells. And you may remember from last time, Excel is not going to include this cell over here in the numerator or in the denominator. So all we need to do is type in, select those cells, or as Excel has done, we could just type in the variable name because we've created that. And we've got, that's the correct mean number of years prison. Now let's do the same for median. And we'll type in this time years, and you'll see that Excel knows that we're referencing a variable. So we'll just double click that, close the parentheses, and we've got the median years of prison. And you'll notice that there's, in this example, with this particular data set, there's a difference between the two, and I'm going to ask you to explain that later on. Why is there a difference? What does that mean for the shape of the distribution? All right. Let's do the same thing now for the age variable. I'm going to look for mean, and remember, for mean, we're going to use the word average. Excel doesn't know what to do with the word mean, even though that's the correct term. And we'll just type in age. Excel selects the range because we've defined that column as the age variable. And there's our age. It's giving us 7/8, which is 7/9, which is annoying, but at any rate, median, same thing, equals median, open parentheses, age. That's correct. I think I also ask you for the minimum value. So let's do that. That's going to be min age. And there's the minimum age. And as you might guess, we're going to get the maximum age with max, open parentheses, age, and we're good to go. All right, let's move on now to the frequency part to compute these frequencies. First thing you need to do is you need to make sure that the data analysis tool pack is activated. So let's talk about how to do that. We're going to go up here to the file menu, and all the way down here at the very bottom it says options. You're going to click options. Then you're going to go over here to where it says add-ins. I'm going to click, and the data analysis tool pack is an Excel add-in. There are a couple of different kinds of add-ins, but this is an Excel add-in. I'm going to click go. And this is a list of all the available Excel add-ins. Analysis tool pack on my machine is checked, so I already have it installed. If yours is not checked, you want to click OK to install it. And then you're done and you're ready to go on and start creating those frequencies. Let's talk about how to do that. Before we get started though, I just want to remind you that I've created a separate video just on the frequency command. In that video, I go into a lot more detail and move also a lot more slowly than I'm going to do in this video. All right, so what do we have here? We have a minimum value of 18 and maximum value of 39. So we need to make sure that our class intervals include all those values. In this sheet, I've already put in what we'd like the intervals to be, 15 to 19, 20 to 24, etc. All right, now remember, for the frequency command, we need a data array and we need a bin range as well. Excel does not know what to do with this stuff here in column G. Those are just for us to know what our categories are going to be. Let's put the bin range over here. A little trick I didn't mention, if you create the categories first, an easy way to put in the correct bin range is just to enter the higher value. So I'm going to enter in each category. So I'm going to enter a 19, a 24, a 29, 34, 39, and I don't have to enter anything over there. What's Excel going to do when I type this frequency command in over here? Excel is going to look through the data array, and it's going to count any values that are 19 or less and put them into this cell. And that, of course, would be any that meet that criteria, that they're between 15 and 19. Then Excel is going to move on to the next bin, which is 24. Excel is going to look for anything that is equal to 24 or less than 24 up to 19, going backwards. So let's remember how to do this. We're going to select these cells. Remember, I go one cell lower than my bin, and now I type in the command. I'm going to go here to the frequency area, to the formula area rather. I'm going to type in equals, and Excel knows I want the frequency. Double click. First thing it wants is the data array. We gave the data array a name of age, so we can just type in age, and it knows to look on the previous sheet for a variable called age. I'm going to select the bin range, close the parentheses. Don't do anything yet. Again, with your left hand simultaneously, you're going to hold down Control and Shift. While you're holding down Control and Shift, you're going to press Enter. And there we go. I went over, and you can do this too. Well, actually, you can't do it because you don't have the data. But if we count up the number of cases, what did we have here? We had 5 cases between 15 to 19. 5 cases between 15 to 19. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and no more cases. So Excel got that one correct. How many cases do I have in the 35 to 39 bin? Go back to the data, 35 to 39. Just this one over here, and that's it. And as you can see, there are no cases where age is greater than 40, so this is correct. Now we want to compute the percentages. we'll compute a total down here. And I can do that by going to Home. And as long as I am directly below a range, I can click Auto Sum. And Excel knows which cells I want here. And the total is 21. Our next step is to compute the percentages we need. So to do that, I'm going to click in I2 on my sheet. Yours may be different. You may set yours up differently. Equals H2 divided by the total value. Remember, I have to make that reference to the total an absolute cell reference. If I don't, Excel is going to return a division by zero error. To make it an absolute cell reference, I just have to add that $sign. And now we will fill down, and those are our percents. And we can double check that those are correct by clicking Auto Sum, and that should be 100. By the way, I skipped a step here for you. In order to get these to show as percents, I need to come up to this number area and change this from number, which is or general, which might be the default, to percentage. And that just displays the decimal number as a percent. All right, let's go on now to talk about the last part of this lab, which is creating a frequency distribution for a nominal variable. To do that, I'm going to use Excel's pivot table functionality. Let's go back to our original data here, and I'm going to click anywhere in my data set area, go to the Insert menu, click Pivot Table. And Excel is smart enough to know that I'm looking for a pivot table that includes these cells, the sheet demo data, and here's the range I want. And Excel will do that if you just click anywhere in this area here. I'm going to put my pivot table on a new worksheet and click OK. All right, you'll see over here on the far right all of the fields in our database. We want to create a pivot table for the gender variable. So how do we do that? Well, I'm going to scroll down until we find the gender variable. There it is. I'm going to pull the gender variable down into this rows area. All right. And then I just need a variable that Excel can count. I have timestamp for every one of the rows in my data set. So I'm going to bring that down to values, to this the value area here. You'll see it says sum of timestamp because it can do arithmetic to that for reasons that are not worth explaining. But it really doesn't do me any good to add up the number of the timestamps for females and timestamps for males. That's kind of silly. So instead, I'm going to click on that down arrow over there, and I'm going to click Value Field Settings. And instead of sum, I'm going to select count. And there we go. You may recall we did have 21 cases. 12 female, 8 male, 1 person preferred not to say. Now, let's also show the percentage of males and females and prefer not to say. To do that, I'm going to take another instance of timestamp, pull that down. Again, it's going to give me this silly sum of timestamp thing. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click Value Field Settings and show values as, let me collect count, show values as percent of column total, percent of column total. Click OK, and there we go for our percents. Way easier than the frequency command that you learned just a few minutes ago, and this works particularly well for nominal level data. Okay, we have just one more step in this lab. We're up to step 16, by the way. Let's take a look. We're interested here in creating another pivot table. This one is going to look at differences in the number of years of prison that are assigned by our respondents for each of the 2 different crimes. So how do we do that? Let's go back to the demo data area. We'll click anywhere in the data set area. Go up to Insert, Pivot Table, New Worksheet Ply, click OK. All right, we're going to take crime. We're going to drag that down here to the rows area. Years assigned in prison, drag that down to the values area. In this case, we're interested in the average number of years. So again, we're going to click that little arrow there, change the value field settings to average. And it shows us that for burglary, Barbara Helm was assigned about 4.5 years of prison time, whereas for embezzlement, she was sentenced to about 7 years in prison. That pretty much wraps it up for this lab. I'll just show you one other thing that I think is kind of interesting. Are there differences in years of prison assigned for the two different crimes based on gender? Now we have a very small data set here, so it really is hard to say much about this, but nonetheless, let's take a look. I'm going to grab gender, drag it down now to the column area. What does the pivot table show me? It shows me that for the crime of embezzlement, males and females gave about the same prison sentence, about 7 years. But for the crime of burglary, the women respondents gave her 4 years as compared to the male respondents who gave her 7 years. So that's actually kind of interesting and might be a question for further research. Okay, well that pretty much wraps things up. I hope that you found this video useful.